Alan Arkin is a washed-up alcoholic superhero, and he's the only one who can stop Christopher Lee's white supremacist bad guy and his colorful array of henchmen in this toe-tapping, incredibly Australian musical adventure. We watch the return of Captain Invincible, today on...
The f*** is this?
Beautiful day. It is.
You like the snow? You like snowy weather? I suppose so. You're an Alberta boy.
I'm an Alberta boy by proxy. I spent 6 years in Alberta, so I guess I'm technically an Alberta boy. I've lived through Alberta winters. I've lived through Edmonton winters. So let's just say I like British Columbia snow.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of snow days like this, where after the podcast, I'm probably going to go outside, walk around for an hour, feel the cold air in my lungs, and then tomorrow it will all be rained away, and I'll be perfectly fucking happy with that.
You get the novelty of snow.
One day is enough for me. The novelty of snow sounds like a great airport novel.
I remember a couple of years ago, a friend of mine's cousin from Brazil was moving up to Vancouver, and he was so worried about, like, the winters in Canada, because he didn't have, like, any kind of parka, and, you know, he just assumed everyone lived in igloos, and we were like, don't worry about Vancouver, it hardly ever snows here, you know, it's the warmest city in Canada, and the year he showed up was the first year that we had, like, that record snowfall, like, the most snow that we've had in 10 years, so we just looked like a bunch of fucking liars to him.
That's like me. Every time I try to watch the Super Bowl, I say it's like, okay, this year I'm going to try and get invested in football. Every year I watch the football, it is the most boring game of football ever. Yeah. I'm the curse. I'm sorry. I apologize. Every time I watch, the game sucks. So I'm sorry. I'll stop doing it. I don't know.
It was still more enjoyable than a lot of the Canucks games recently.
All right, shut up.
It's been tough. It's been a rough couple of weeks.
It hasn't been great.
Well, welcome back to Sports Talk, however you wish to self-identify. To the fuck is this, where we dive through DVD bins, sort through streaming apps to find the weird, the bizarre, and the unloved. Yes, it's 2 podcasts for the price of 1. Interjecting with our weird movie podcast, we'll be bringing you little sports bombs throughout the recording. If I feel like it's getting too artsy or nerdy, I'm gonna issue a sports bomb. And then one of 2 of you gonna have to give me some hot sports facts. I'm your host, Kaz Lescard, and joining me always is my co-host, Jameson Rafter.
Breaking news, Louis Eriksson was put on waivers and was not claimed off the waivers because I don't understand how the taxi squad system works in the COVID year of the NHL.
That's okay. I didn't understand a word of that sentence. Not one. I recognize the individual words, but when you put them all together like that, that's just that TV end of recording signal in my head. What is that? The bars?
Oh, like the color pattern?
Color bars. They're literally called the color
right.
bars, and I couldn't think of that. Hey, we got a fantastic guest and another weird, crazy movie. But before we do that, Jameson, it's been a while since we do this. Is it time for a Probably Shouldn't Mention That?
I believe it is, Kaz.
Probably should have mentioned that,
All right, I'm going to let you take the reins on this because I think you found the bulk of the cool info on our last movie, Past the Ammo. So what did you dig up about that?
Well, the funny thing is, like, after that movie had wrapped up, my head was just swimming because I think I needed more answers about that film. And it's so odd to me that, like, we had, the premise of the film is like these crooked televangelists swindling a group full of a small town of all their money. And with that premise, we didn't once bring up, like, the connection of Jimmy and Tammy Faye Baker, the real life counterparts to it. I was kind of flabbergasted. I thought that, like, maybe this was like a take on, like, that whole controversy. I didn't know that the Tim Curry and Eddie Potts characters were not inspired by those people. That movie predates the real life controversy of the Baker family, which I thought was amazing.
Now, can you give us, because obviously we haven't even gone past the introduction yet, can you give us the 30-second info dump on what the whole Baker situation was? Because I kind of remember the name Tammy Faye Baker, but I don't really know much. They were crooked televangelists, is what they were, yes?
Yes, that's it. That's right.
There we go. There we go. That was Jameson's 30-second recap of the Baker family.
Where I confirmed what you just said, Kaz. Yeah, that's my 30-second recap. Yeah. Yeah, but the other thing that I found out about it was the ending credits song which I thought was just like an absolute, delightful little number. I was like, oh, I can't wait. I gotta find out who the artist was. I gotta find like the actual name of that song. So I watched through the entire credits of that movie. Guess what? It's not listed in the credits. And like I looked on IMDb and I looked on Wikipedia and I like looked on TuneFind and like it's not even on fucking TuneFind. So I don't know what the fuck's going on with that song. And then Kaz, you found out that, like, well, you just offhandedly said like, oh, it's probably Randy Newman.
And I always say whenever we get our wacky end credit songs and whatnot, it's like, oh, this is probably Randy Newman. It sounds in the key of Randy Newman. Turns out it was A. Newman. It was Randy Newman's cousin, not the famous composer Thomas Newman, who's also related to Randy Newman. This is the third lesser known Newman, to the point where I didn't even bother writing his name down for this segment. So we'll call him Slappy Newman. Was the composer of that song.
But you know what that kind of reminded me of? How there's the fucking connection between David Knopfler and Mark Knopfler from Mercenary Man.
It's just a big old family reunion over here on the show. All right. That's fascinating. That's fascinating new information. That was, probably should have mentioned that.
Probably should have mentioned that,
That was the segment before the show actually starts. It's the aperitif of this podcast that we call ours. Now, our guest, he is a actor and a playwright and the executive director of the Richmond's Art Coalition. Andrew Wade is here. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
How you doing, Andrew?
Hello. Happy to be here. Happy to share in some stunning cinematic scenarios.
Nice alliteration.
3 C's. Now, Andrew, I didn't realize until after I booked you for the show that you fit snugly in the center of the Venn diagram of people that I know in Jameson. No, I knew that we were all at a party together, and I assumed that you met Jameson there, but no, you guys actually went to high school together. I did not know that.
That's right, we did.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of ran in very similar circles, and yeah, that's all I remember. How you been, man?
Yeah, we were basically friendly acquaintances. Like, yeah, always happy to be in the room with Jameson.
Aw, thanks, man.
But we weren't going out for teenage drinks or anything like that.
There wasn't a dichotomy shift at any point in time. Andrew, you never used to wear a leather jacket and shove Jameson's head in a toilet or something.
I feel like it would have been the other way around. But
No way,
That's
man.
why I said dichotomy shift, because nowadays I would assume Jameson would be the Flash Thompson of that particular Spider-Man clique.
Let me put it this way. I wasn't
changes us all.
unpopular in high school, but like I didn't really, come into my own until after. I didn't get into fucking shape until like the grad year because I wanted to look good for my date. I wanted to look good in the tux. So there we go.
I'll put it this way. Yeah, for me, if you want to, Andrew in high school, for winter grad, for dressing up, I popped a lens from a sunglasses and just held it in my eye and borrowed a skull cane from a friend and wandered around with that.
So that was sort of where the bar was for the winter formal.
Yeah, I was very, very theatrical.
But one of my fondest memories of the last year of high school, Andrew, was the theater class that I took with you. Like you had been you had been a prominent figure in the acting class at high school, and I kind of never dipped my toe in that until the last year because there was a writing program too. And even though we never like collaborated on a play, like you were one of my favorite people to like just workshop material with.
Aw,
yeah.
thank you.
And we always had that one bit we would go back to where we would like imitate Statler and Waldorf.
Nothing brings people together like the Muppets.
Or drives them apart. Anyway, moving on. I don't know. I just needed a segue. I don't know. I just needed to think of like something to say to move on to the next part of the podcast. More relationships have been destroyed by the Muppets than started. It's a fact. Look up the info. Anyway, Andrew, on this show we watch weird, crazy, bizarre, strange, unknown movies. What would you say is the weirdest cinematic experience you've ever had? The weirdest movie you've ever seen?
Well, I do own a DVD called Splat Attack, which is William Shatner narrating people playing paintball as if it was a grand, campaign.
Holy hell.
So
How does that hold up?
it's engaging.
Did it ever hold up?
Yeah, it's a paycheck William Shatner got to do some voiceover.
I don't know if that qualifies as a movie, and it's more of William Shatner needed lunch money, and they just had all this stock footage of people playing paintball. Look at that weirdo over there. Oh, look at that fat one run. And yeah, it's...
Someone needed to make a car payment. That's what that sounds like to me. Holy hell. Man,
Yeah.
I kind of want to watch that just to see how much of a train wreck it is. You know what you should do? You should just like send that off to the Red Letter Media guys and see if they'll put it on the wheel of the worst. Because that is just like any kind of straight to VHS 30 minutes fucking instructional video cash grab.
I think it's probably like 71 minutes, like the bare
Holy
limit
fuck!
to be a feature release, yeah.
What era of Shatner is this?
I mean, since he's just doing voiceover, it's hard to tell. I think
There's
when
no-
paintball was popular, and then like a few years after that, probably.
Okay, so I'm gonna say 2002. Sounds like exactly when the love for paintball sort of wore off.
If I had to peg it anywhere, I would say it's probably in the era between that old Star Trek cartoon show. Because didn't they have a lot of the original cast members? So he was probably already in the recording booth that day. Or when he was doing TJ Hooker.
Oh, you're going way earlier than I thought. When did paintball become a thing? Paintball seems like a very 90s trend to me. But maybe that's just because every time I've done paintball...
We need
it
more
was
information,
in-
Andrew.
Okay, yeah. Alright, I have the DVD here. It is approximately 80 minutes long.
What?
The DVD case doesn't know how long it is. It is approximately 80 minutes long.
Whoa, look at that!
Okay, so this is late age William Shatner. Holy shit.
This is Splat Attack. We're attracting people from all over the country. I can only tell you that the men who surround me, the people who will command with me, are devoted to the cause of winning. We must win this battle because Tom Kay should not be allowed to be around anymore.
The man's never held a paintball gun in his life.
Yeah, 2004.
Andrew, can we have that? Can we, with that podcast, I think we have our next episode.
100%. I've only seen it like 1.5 times, probably, so the half is indicative.
Was it
Also,
a gift from a friend you don't talk to anymore?
I mean, this feels like a dollar store dad gift, but I don't know.
Dollar Store Dad is also the title of an airport book.
Not your dad, just a dad that you hang out with, and you're like, hey, dollar store dad, what's going on? I got a bunch of gold.
Here's a DVD for you, kid. Thanks, Dollar Store Dad.
Yeah, Shatner's back in action for the ultimate paintball showdown.
Is that the back of the, are there any other choice sentences on the back of the box? Any quotes from a paintball digest, perhaps?
William Shatner takes on a familiar role as commander of Earth's forces in a galactic confrontation fought with real paintball weapons.
Holy fuck, Kaz, we have to watch this.
we might have to schedule a screening of Splat Attack, but it is sadly not the movie
No,
we're
not
talking
the
about
movie.
today. Today, we instead are going to be talking about 1983's The Return of Captain Invincible. Jameson, this is a movie that you suggested, and as of yesterday, what I did not realize is that this is yet another musical. So you purposefully suggested we do a musical.
I did.
That's surprising to me.
Yeah, well, like I said before, I'm not opposed to musicals, but the reason that this had always stuck out in my mind was, I want to say about 10 or so years ago, I was just browsing the Something Awful forums, and they were showing, someone had a clip from this movie, which had Christopher Lee singing about booze to a man dressed as a superhero. And I thought, what the hell is this? This is weird looking. Oh, well, and I just kind of like filed it away. And to this day, whenever someone brings up Christopher Lee, I think of that scene, and it's like, haha, yeah, that was a weird fucking thing. And then when we were, like, at the start of the year when we were talking about, like, okay, so let's figure out what movies we want to watch, I had just read, like, some article about, like, the approaching 20th anniversary of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and the name Christopher Lee came up and said, remember when Christopher Lee was in that weird superhero movie where he was singing? Wait a second. Stop the presses. What the fuck was that? I gotta look this up. Is that a real thing? And then I feverishly did a bunch of research, and I was like, Kaz, we gotta do this movie. I need to know. I need more information.
It was a great poll. I had never heard of this, and all of the info surrounding this movie makes it sound fascinating. So, without further ado, let me just dive into here and tell you all about the crazy people who made The Return of Captain Invincible. So, this movie is directed by Philippe Mora, an Australian director. This is a very Australian movie, by the way. We're back in pirate movie territory, Jameson, in that it's both a musical and outrageously Australian. But
I want to know where Ted Hamilton falls into the mix.
He might have a cameo. Who knows?
Okay,
There's lots of... This movie has a lot of cameos. The thing is that they're all Australian TV celebrities. so we're not going to recognize any
From the
of them.
70s. So,
Hugh
There's going to
Jackman.
be
whoosh.
There's gonna be, like, a lot of nurses and cabbies coming on with, like, 2 lines, and the camera's gonna hold on them for a bit too long, and we're gonna be like, that was someone, wasn't it? Fuck.
Yeah, I should know who that is, yeah. It'll be like
Alright,
me when
so-
I was watching Long Shot. Right?
Yeah, God, long shot. Oof. Check out that episode. So, Philippe Mora, he's directed over 20 films, so he has quite a big CV here, but I'm just gonna focus on the interesting ones in there. The big movies that he directed Howling 2 and Howling 3. The interesting thing about Howling 2 is that it's one of those movies that has multiple subtitles. But the great thing about Howling 2 is that both of its subtitles are amazing. It is impossible to choose a favorite amongst the subtitles, because they're both the best movie title ever made. So, the one that I think most people are familiar with is Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf. It's also known...
The person watching the movie, your sister.
Yes,
What
Your
you say
Sister.
about my sister, you stupid movie?
But it's also known as Howling 2, Sturba Werewolf Bitch. So it's great. Both of those are awesome. It's impossible to choose which one is better. The subtitle for Howling 3, not quite as good, but it definitely shows how Australian he is. Howling 3, The Marsupials, in which the werewolves apparently evolve to have pouches for their young.
Are you kidding? Like, is that just your joke on this?
I'm
Or is
being
it like
dead
rare
serious.
versions of marsupials?
I am being dead serious. Howling 3, The Marsupials is a movie that exists, and it's from the director of this movie that we're watching today.
Okay, so they're not weird marsupials. They are specifically werewolves that become marsupial-like.
I guess that's the natural evolution of werewolves.
Sure.
Alright,
Hang
well,
out
there's all
long
kinds
enough.
of weird evolutionary shenanigans that went down in Australia, so I believe it.
I guess you have to watch the Howling film series to find out. Incidentally, there are 8 of those fucking movies, so,
I'm not doing that.
no one's doing that. Yeah, some other films that he directed were Mad Dog Morgan, starring Dennis Hopper, which is a bushranger film, which is also known as an Australian Western, which is also known as a kangaroo Western, which is also known as a meat pie Western. Obviously playing on the concept of the spaghetti Western, based on it's a Western where it was filmed. I love that there's an entire genre of film called the meat pie Western. I could definitely... That's a genre I can sink my teeth into.
My mind is just buzzing on how much I love the term kangaroo western. Just like the visual alone of that sounds amazing.
Here's another movie with a fantastic title, Pterodactyl Women from Beverly Hills, produced by Troma Entertainment.
Ah, that explains it.
Paleontologist Dick Chandler discovers a dinosaur egg, prompting an eccentric witch doctor named Salvador Dali to put a curse on Chandler's wife Pixie, causing her to slowly turn into a pterodactyl. After Pixie lays an egg, Dick tracks down Salvador Dali and apologizes. There we go. That's the synopsis from IMDb for Pterodactyl.
That's a trauma movie if I ever heard of
That
one.
just tells you the entire movie right there.
Like, are they using, like, real-life Salvador Dali? Like, is this a period piece?
No, it is not. They did not get... Troma Entertainment was not able to secure Salvador Dali.
Did they just know someone who just did a very good Salvador Dali impression? And like, we have to put you in a movie somewhere. Well, I'm doing this pterodactyl thing.
Oh, this is interesting, actually. Salvador Dali in this movie is played by Brian James, who, you will remember Jameson from our Wishman episode. He played Staten Jack.
Oh, that dude. Okay.
Yeah, that hulking... No, they were not... Troma was not able to secure Salvador Dali, an artist who famously once requested for his cameo in Alexander Jodorowsky's Dune $1 million for 2 minutes on screen. So Troma didn't have the green for that, unfortunately.
Oh, I think he would have done a trauma movie for free, presented with the offer. But they wanted Staten Jack Rose for it, which, frankly, after seeing him in Witchman, I can't see him as Dolly.
Come to think of it, if there is a film company that kind of echoes the absurdity of Salvador Dali's paintings, it might be Troma.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's Un Chien Andalou and the Toxic Avenger. Moving on. He also directed a movie called Communion, starring Christopher Walken, about a man who's abducted by aliens, and features a scene where a naked Christopher Walken dances with rubber aliens, exclaiming over and over again that he is naked.
Here I am, I'm naked. I'm naked.
Now, I tried so hard last night to find an isolated clip from this movie to send you guys, because I saw a clip from this movie once, much like you, Jameson, saw a clip from Return of Captain Invincible out of context. Ages ago, I saw a clip from Communion out of context that is literally Christopher Walken surrounded by the shittiest looking aliens I've ever seen, completely naked, waving his arms and exclaiming, "I'm naked!"
Here I am, I'm naked. I'm naked.
And I couldn't find it.
Well, now you have your white whale to go on your Captain Ahabian adventure.
So, that's the movies that he directed, but before we get into the rest of the episode, I want to talk about some movies that haven't come out yet. But these are the next 3 movies that he has listed on IMDb that apparently are going to come out, and as you can see, the years have not sapped his ability to come up with the best fucking movie titles. He has an animated movie that apparently is supposed to come out sometime this year called The Hunchback Bee of Notre Dame, which is just so stupid.
I mean, they have knees, but they do not have shoulders.
Yeah.
God, that sounds worse than Jerry Seinfeld's Bee movie.
Now, my assumption about this is that, well, you know, he's doing Hunchback in Notre Dame, but he's making them all bees, so it'll be like a weird bee period piece. And then I read the synopsis, which begins, an evil bee starts a fire in Notre Dame. So this is apparently like a relevant movie?
Oh no!
It was the bees! The bees did the
Nobody
fire!
respects the bees! Oh no!
Wow. Yeah, because they did have some bees on like the top of Notre Dame that like they had like some beekeeping going on up there. I remember that being a thing.
What did like a beekeeper accidentally knock over a candle on some oily rags and oh my god. The true story of what happened to Notre Dame.
What was the logic there? It's all like, man, this is an amazing cathedral. It's one of the great wonders of the world. People come here. The touristry is amazing. It's one of the best architectural things in the world. You know what it's missing? Beekeeping.
On the top floor in the middle of Paris.
What could go wrong? Surely there won't be one evil bee.
I don't think they could have counted on the evil bee being a thing.
You never count on the. There's just like it just zooms in on the hive and then it focuses on one bee, but like the bee has like shifty eyes.
You know that animated movie that was made by some bullshit production company out of Europe somewhere where they just take a lot of pre-existing animation from other better movies and then put it on the Titanic, and then they have this animated movie about the sinking of the Titanic? Someone saw that and thought, like, that's not a bad idea, taking these massive national tragedies and making kids' movies out of them.
Yes, Jameson, I am familiar with the animated Titanic movie with the rapping dog. You know, there's a bit of a difference here in the sense that, you know, I don't believe anyone died in the Notre Dame fire, correct?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
So it's a little easier to have artistic license when it's not a horrible... I mean, you know, irreparable damage happened to Notre Dame, but no one lost their life, so sure, make a fucking bee movie out of it.
Well, okay, no one died from the fire that we know of, but if there are evil bees involved, like, that one was probably, like, targeting whoever has an allergy around.
No.
Like, well, they didn't die from the fire.
No human deaths were recorded, but the bee deaths were astronomical. It was just... It was a bee man.
And as we know, like, you know, every bee life counts now in this day and age.
God save the queen.
Oh man. Okay. We could clearly riff on Hunchback Bee of Notre Dame for a while.
Yeah,
There's two more titles.
There was one more.
Yes. There's 2 more titles here I want to quickly get through. So he's going back to the werewolf well, because he has another movie coming out called I Was a Communist Werewolf, which in theory sounds like a good title, but like, are people even afraid of communists anymore? And werewolves, for that matter.
Yeah, like, is the was referring to no longer a werewolf or no longer a communist?
This could be the entire podcast right here. Just pulling apart this guy's upcoming movies here. You're right, it does imply that he's not one of the other anymore.
I don't know. I'm just like, what the fuck is with this guy and werewolves? What's your big hang up about werewolves? What haven't you said about werewolves at this point? You've been making fucking werewolf movies since the 70s. What is there left to say?
People aren't even afraid of werewolves anymore. They just want to have sex with them. No one wants to sex the communist, which is why I became werewolf. The other movie that I want to quickly mention, he has a documentary in the works about one of the stars of this movie that we are watching, Christopher Lee, which makes perfect sense because Christopher Lee is one of the most fascinating people. I would absolutely watch a documentary about Christopher Lee. The title of this one is Dracula Nazi Hunter, How I Learned to Love Christopher Lee and Drink Atomic Bombs. I just want to see that one. I don't really have anything funny to say about that. Christopher Lee, fucking fascinating dude. I'd love to see a documentary about that guy. This is a long intro. Really quick, lightning round here. This movie was co-written by two guys, Andrew Gaddy, who doesn't really have anything interesting to say about, but it was also written by Stephen E. D'Souza, famed screenwriter of 48 Hours, Commando, The Running Man, Die Hard 1 and 2, Judge Dredd, Ricochet, and most importantly, he wrote and directed a little movie called Street Fighter.
It's an impressive resume, honestly.
That's a very impressive resume. Is this like an early project for him? It has to be. 83?
Yeah, this is definitely 83. Yeah, so this was pre-Die Hard. Yeah. And then as far as the cast goes, we've talked about Christopher Lee. Captain Invincible himself is played by Alan Arkin.
Yeah, I don't think Alan Arkin has always been an old man to me. It'll be interesting to see him as a young man for once.
And as a superhero.
Which I didn't see coming.
As a musical superhero.
Which I also didn't see coming.
He's never done like a superhero movie before. He was in The Rocketeer. I guess that's kind of the only close-ish thing that he's done. Yeah, and then as I said before, this movie has a bevy of Australian talent in it, so, you know, if you're from Australia or you love Australia media, you'll probably be all like, oh, that person, but I'm clueless. I don't know.
And I think it's just like kind of important to mention offhandedly that, you know, this film was made in the era where like the first two Christopher Reeve Superman movies had just come out. Like this, he's like very much predates like the big superhero boom of, you know, the late or the 90s, and
Batman was still like 7 years away at this point.
Yeah, people's familiarity with Batman at this point was still the Adam West Batman. So this is like in the era where like it was okay to depict superheroes as like really campy and corny. Right?
Yeah, definitely, because that was still sort of the whole dark and brooding superhero hadn't really come around yet. That was more of a Frank Miller sort of invention, which I don't think happened until that actually might be like a few years from now. What's that story called? First Night?
The Return of the Dark Knight?
No, that was the later Frank Miller. No, Batman Year One. That's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, Batman Year One, which I believe was, I have that right behind me actually. Hold on.
Yeah, you're the Batman guy.
Batman Year One came out. Since we're doing the whole, hey, I have it right on my shelf here. Oh, 1988. Oh, really?
Oh, really? Oh.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe earlier. I don't know. 86 possibly. I don't know.
Sure.
Around then. But it was after this movie. So the very last thing that I want to say is that, yeah, as we said at the top of this episode, this is a musical, but what Jameson, I don't think you realized, in fact, what I know you didn't realize, is who wrote this musical. The songs in this were written by none other than Richard Hartley and Richard O'Brien, the same team that wrote Shock Treatment.
Oh, well, didn't this turn out just wonderfully for you, Kaz? Those are the same guys that did Rocky Horror Picture Show, right?
And the guy who wrote Rocky Horror Show. Yes,
that's for
Richard O'Brien. Yes. So we have songs to compare it against.
Great.
All right.
Songs that you care about.
Yeah. Without any further ado, I guess we can take a break and we can go watch this movie. When we come back, we'll tell you all about it. Jameson, do you want to leave the folks with one last sports bomb?
Sure. Even if he never recorded a single goal in his entire career, Wayne Gretzky would still be the all-time points leader in the NHL.
Whoa. Think about that. That makes you think.
Yeah.
That really makes you think. And hey, while you're thinking, think about charity. Think about giving. Think about spreading the money around and the love.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pay attention to this movie while I look up some more sports facts.
Okay. Alright, we'll see you soon. I mean, we won't see you.
No. Hey guys, it's Jameson again with today's charity spot. Many people imagine British Columbia as a province carpeted in forest, with giant old-growth trees and a pristine, wild interior untouched by civilization. Well, one look at the newly released and interactive Seeing Red map, published by the environmental group Conservation North, tells a very different story. To gain a better understanding of the effects of the forestry industry and other human activity in this province, the group pulled government datasets and spent a year of research to gain a clearer picture on the state of our ancient forest. The results were sadly staggering. According to the findings, roughly 83% of the old-growth forest in British Columbia has been eliminated. There are only about 400,000 hectares of old-growth forest that support stands of large trees. These stands are scattered in almost every region and amount to less than 1% of the total forested area of the province. And the majority of these old-growth forests are unprotected and slated to be logged. I don't have to tell you how troublesome this would be. We're at great risk of losing the rare inland temperate rainforest, where skyscraper-like cedar trees can be more than 100,000 years old, and creatures like the endangered deep snow mountain caribou live in the spring and early winter, surviving on lichen found only in these forests. And once the old-growth forest is gone, it may as well be gone forever. It takes hundreds to thousands of years for the forest to grow back into this late stage in the forest ecology. While in the meantime, the biosphere is dominated by relatively few old and large tree species, leading to more as yet to be seen effects on the environment. And sadly, this is an area where all major political parties in the province are eager to drag their feet on. Back in September, the province announced 353,000 hectares of logging deferral areas. But while this was initially reported as protection for old-growth forests, in reality, the majority of the areas included were second growth or not classified as forests at all. Just 3,800 hectares of at-risk old-growth forest was included in the announcement, leaving out over 99% of at-risk old growth recommended for deferral. And sure, the logging companies are allotted a strict maximum on the amount of trees that are permitted to harvest, but it's a large, large maximum. And the cover-up isn't even that clandestine. Take any scenic highway drive throughout the province, and you'll see a curtain of forest left at the roadside, creating the illusion of untapped wilderness, while hiding large swaths of clear-cut further inward. So for today's charity, I highly encourage you to check out ancientforestalliance.org, a non-profit organization working to protect BC's endangered old-growth forests and to ensure sustainable second-growth forestry jobs. From there, you can find the avenues to take effective action, volunteer your time, make a donation, and more. Residents of BC take great pride in the natural splendor of our home province. Let's make it so future generations can feel the same. Once again, that link is ancientforestalliance.org.
Well, much like Captain Invincible himself, we have returned. Do you guys remember the movie Hancock?
I never saw it, actually.
Yeah, I did not see it.
It's also a movie about a drunken superhero who gets his mojo back, and I have a theory as to why that movie bombed.
Not enough singing.
But did it have women's tops just getting magnetically pulled apart?
It might have. I don't really remember much about that. This is sidetrack talking about Hancock before we get into the movie that we just watched. Originally, that movie was based on a screenplay that is literally called Tonight He Comes. And the genesis of the movie Hancock is, what if a superhero murdered a prostitute with his super semen? And then Will Smith got on board, and then they realized there's no way we can make that movie. And they turned it into
family-friendly, famously likable Will Smith. Yeah. I gotta say, like, there are many ways that you can, like, take, like, the character of Superman, because he's been around forever, and, like, he can be used for amazing epics, he can be used for lighthearted adventure stories, he can be used for sci-fi stories, he can be used for, like, propaganda pieces, for satire. He's one of my top 10 favorite fictional characters just because he's so versatile. I don't know who the fuck thought this was a decent idea to do like a riff on Superman as a disillusioned drunk singing guy.
Well, the screenwriter of Die Hard, for one. Yes, we should also note for posterity, you are making this statement while you are currently wearing a Superman t-shirt as well.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
Yes, the lore runs deep. Well, Superman is the obvious example. The thing about Captain Invincible, he's a real no-name brand superhero. He's kind of just a collection of powers with no real basis or forethought. Yeah.
He is, to like kind of use like the term that would be used in like DC Comics and Marvel, of like the pantheon of superheroes, this guy would be like a D-list hero in those universes.
Yeah. I mean, we should probably mention like what his powers are. So he's got the power of magnets, He can connect to computers and think real good.
Well, he has a computer
And-
brain. He has an amazing computer brain.
Yes, which works super well with magnets. And
You won't famously wipe a hard drive with a magnet.
And he can
That's
fly.
why he's a washed-up alcoholic, is because his magnets are fucking with his computer brain.
oh, and he's invincible and ageless apparently.
Well, I mean, that's right there in the title.
And he can fly. But like, he can fly, but like when you're a superhero, being able to fly is like being able to walk or drive. If you can't do it naturally, like there are means for you to get around that.
Yeah, what I loved is that he doesn't seem to have any sort of super strength. Like,
Well, he does.
He, like-
he picks
Does
up
he?
things. He punches through walls.
he does punch through walls, yeah, but I feel like I don't know, like, in those fight scenes, he's, like, visibly having trouble picking up a small human, and, like...
Because he's out of shape. And also, this movie's inconsistent, and also they didn't bother to define what his powers are from scene to scene. They just kind of make shit up as it suits whatever scenario they're currently in.
And they cast an actor who, for being a superhero, does not really project that super heroism that you would expect.
You said at the beginning, Jameson, you've only ever thought of Alan Arkin as an old man. Now, watching a movie where he's probably like in his 40s in this movie or whatnot, like late 30s, early 40s or whatever, maybe a little bit older, but he has always been an old man. He is never not, he is just one of those actors that, much like Captain Invincible, he was old before he was young.
The Steve Martin syndrome or whatever. He's got a pot belly and he's always slouching and like he's got scrawny arms and he was like that even in the moments where like they were showing Captain Invincible in his prime. I love that about him.
It's just that Alan Arkin voice, you know? Like, if you covered someone's eyes and you just had Alan Arkin from the 1970s speak, they would be all like, that's an 80-year-old man. Like, he just has, like, that natural rasp. Well, what did we think? What were our overall takeaways of the return of Captain Invincible?
There's a lot to enjoy. Kind of like if you go to see like a sketch comedy show, there'll be like, I really liked 3 out of 8 of those sketches.
That's a bad night. That's a bad night at the improv. That was not worth the cover charge.
You know, I'm a big fan of superhero stuff. This is with some real silly superhero stuff. I'm a big fan of absurdist comedy. This was definitely absurdist.
Oh yeah.
Where they're like, you know what this scene needs? This scene just needs a song that is entirely the American president shouting the word bullshit for a minute
And that's
straight.
our opening song!
Bullshit! Bull, 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 bull. Shit, 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 shit. Bullshit, 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 bullshit. No!
That was the
20 minutes
best
in.
that we got.
20 minutes in. I am frustrated to no end that they never explain the dinosaur aspect of Captain Invincible. Like, he has claws, like holding his cape to the rest of his costume the entire time. Dinosaur claws. He bites into a bar and has a flashback of a dinosaur.
Or some kind of kimono dragon.
Or lizard, or Komodo dragon.
They're eagle claws.
Their talons, yeah.
They're American eagle claws because he has an eagle helmet.
Oh.
He only wears the eagle helmet sometimes, but he always has the eagle claw. I agree. They are a very unnecessary part of that costume. They don't really add anything. It does look super weird that he has these big velociraptor things on his fucking
Yeah, just
shoulders.
constantly giving him a shoulder rub. It's crazy
Yeah.
looking.
He's Superman by way of Hawkman, kind of.
Like, I'm no stranger to superhero parody stuff because I have, like, my Kilroy series, so I always appreciate, like, a good poking fun at the genre. And there are certain elements to this. Like, my favorite parts of the movie were where they're kind of like taking the piss out of the superhero conventions. Like when he has like his hearing at the start of the movie where like he's being outlawed as a superhero, they're listing off his crimes, and one of them is like flying without a pilot's license, wearing his underwear in public, you know, like shit like that. I love parts like that. But then there are cases where, okay, well, we're going to make this such a broad comedy that, yes, we will get to the superhero jokes, but we're also going to get to, like, a vacuum cleaner fight. Or we're going to get, like, it's like, where the hell did this come from? And we got to...
I can tell you exactly where that came from. It was one of the two screenwriters came up with the joke that Captain Invincible says, well, this really sucks. And then they're like, oh, vacuum cleaner store, there we go. And they wrote the scene around that. They came up with the punchlines first.
I say the one image that's going to stick with me from this movie, if nothing else, is two vacuum cleaners slithering out of the eyes of a skull that was in a vacuum cleaner store.
That's how you know you're in an evil vacuum cleaner store. If there's just random skulls lying around, you should probably shop online.
But yeah, like, this is gonna sound like such an obvious statement, but yeah, the parts that I liked, I really liked, and the parts that I didn't like, I did not like. Which I
There
think
were
is...
pluses and minuses. There was a plot.
Thank you for listening to our show. Yeah.
Welcome to our movie review podcast.
Fuck, do you want to, like, take it from the top here? What goes on in this fucking movie?
Yeah, well, okay, so Captain Invincible, you mentioned, Andrew, that he appears not to age. And again, they don't really explain this, but yeah, the movie does open with some really I really enjoyed this opening with the fake.
Yeah, I was like, this is starting out very promising. I loved, like, the fake newsreel where they're showing, like, the golden era of Captain Invincible, where, like, he's taking down the bootleggers, and he's fighting the Nazis, giving Adolf what for? Like, I really like that kind of shit.
Watch these monsters closely, folks, because in a second, the mighty hand of justice is going to deal them a blow they'll never forget. Yes, it's him, Captain Invincible, the man of magnets.
And they're laying the groundwork early on because when he's fighting the bootleggers, the boss is Christopher Lee in like a gangster suit. And then a little later when it's the war, they're showing Hitler talking to the SS, and in the background you can see Christopher Lee is also there. So you can see they're not really drawing attention to it, even though I have a lot of things to say about this narrator. We'll get to him in a minute. The most inconsistent fucking narrator of all time.
The fucking Adam West Batman narrator. Or no, he's not the Adam West Batman narrator. He's the fucking Rocky and Bullwinkle narrator.
He's Jay Ward. Yeah, exactly. No, but I like this opening. I like him just like casually fucking with the Nazis. He flies up to the plane that the two Nazis, but rather than just like destroy the plane, he like chills out on like the front of the plane. He like is reading a newspaper. He's like turning over to the Nazis like, oh, look at that. He pulls out a cigar at
like
one
smoking
point.
a cigarette and this.
Good luck lighting that when you're fucking flying through the air, but you know, whatever. Yeah. And then it goes naturally into the McCarthy hearings.
Like the actual, like using actual fucking archive footage of that they just superimpose, or they reshot clips around Captain Invincible and his lawyer sitting in on the McCarthy hearings, and then cutting to like, you know, rather than cast an actor to play McCarthy, they just cut to archive footage. It's very like Forrest Gump, the way that they did.
We are forgetting, so there was also the Boy Scout sequence where
Yes.
he crushes a boy's shoulder and it's not explained. Oh, this is a mystic mark, which is magic that is also never explained. It's just, did he just break that boy's bones?
He's showing the Boy Scouts how to like start a campfire, and one of the boys is like, I want to grow up to be just like you, Captain Invincible. And Alan Arkin's like, I don't think you can do that, kid. And he says, well, maybe I'll be president. Yeah, it's a better idea. You can wave to the cameras now. Like, he doesn't talk, like, he does and doesn't talk like that in the movie. You know, he talks like the ever chipper Christopher Reeve Superman, but it's coming out of Alan Arkin with that thick Bronx accent of his. It's really great.
I think you nailed it, Jameson. You got a really decent Alan Arkin going on. He does literally, like, at the end of that Boy Scout thing, he's all like, alright, wave to the cameras, you little bastards there. It does, like, Captain Invincible crushing this boy's shoulder seems like such a throwaway one-off gag. Oh, he doesn't know his own strength. No, that turns out to be a major plot point that comes back. As you were saying, Jameson, you know, the whole actual footage of Joe McCarthy in that scene reminds you of Forrest Gump. It's almost exactly like another movie, Good Night and Good Luck, directed by George Clooney, which is about the McCarthy hearings. They just didn't bother to cast an actor to play McCarthy in that. They just used old footage. So Hancock stole from this movie, George Clooney stole from this movie. So we got a running tally of all the people that are ripping off the return of Captain Invincible.
Well, the first Captain Invincible blew the roof off the box office, so you just knew there would be a second one.
Now strike where the iron is hot. Yeah, and he's labeled Well, he's not labeled as a communist. He's just kind of upset that anyone would accuse him of being unpatriotic. So he quits being a superhero and he becomes a hardcore alcoholic, and he gets so drunk he flies to Australia, and it takes him 40 years before he realizes that he's in Australia.
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just exiles himself there for no real reason. It makes no public appearances. No one recognizes him. The one case where I think the first time he had any kind of human interaction was when a news reporter goes to Australia to report on like some space station catastrophe. And he said, we have like an eyewitness here. And, Alan Arkin, being the drunk former superhero is like, yeah, I saw it, and I tried flying up to catch the damn thing, but it blew up. Oh, you caught it, and you, of course, sir. Back to you, Jim. And I'm like, there's no fucking way they would use that news footage.
Yeah.
This is a wash. We can't use any of that.
I might have misheard. Did he try to stop the satellite, or did he cause the satellite? My assumption was that he was flying through the air wasted, and then he crashed into something. But I might have misheard that.
No.
Sir, did you see Skylab when it fell?
Yes, I did.
You did. Would you mind
I was flying through the air, and this enormous object hurling at me at great speed.
Thank you very
I
much.
attempted to catch it,
Catch it. Yes, good work, sir.
but it was going with such great speed
Yes, sir. Thank you.
that it threw me violently to the earth.
Thank you very much.
And
that's all from Australia.
If that's the case, they didn't show it, but they also
No, this
didn't
movie-
show the fucking climax of the movie, so
Yeah.
that tracks.
Yeah, normally if a space station crashes or explodes or something, it's a plot point in a film. Here it's a throwaway. Yeah, there was a space
Yeah, that would be
station.
an interesting way to start your movie. Too bad this movie has zero budget. This movie, rarely have I watched a movie that ran out of money mid-shoot more than this one, because the way this movie wraps up, it's just like, we gotta go! We fucked up.
I love that one of their sets is the green screen studio that they probably also used to film their flying sequences.
Stretching every dollar that they can. Like, things look pretty cool in this soundstage here. Like, we gotta write some scenes around this.
So the evil plot, starts getting kicked into gear, where we find out that Mr. Midnight, Christopher Lee, our evil villain, who has the most colorful array of hench people of any supervillain I've seen. He really went like the extra fucking... It's like, you know how like in Batman, all of the villains have henchmen that are like catered to their gimmick? It's like Mr. Midnight took one from every group. One of all of them, please. Because they are so colorful.
He's got a scientist henchman, he's got a waiter henchman, he's got a clown henchman, a little person henchman, and for some reason, like a troll. Like a little cave
He's
troll.
got like a little monkey lizard man that I thought they were maybe going to explain, but
Never did. And some
No.
put topless women, because the movie just liked to put them into the background of shots.
Yeah, Mr. Midnight was really like a huge grab bag of random assortments of villainy. He had a lair, you know, he had like a real estate scheme, he had like all these like operatives working for him. He had reptiles and vultures in his lair.
okay, let's get this out of the way. There is an amazing running gag with Mr. Midnight that really is great. He has a succession, much like he has a wide variety of henchmen, he also has a wide variety of evil animal sidekicks, and he keeps feeding the animals to the other animals, but the next animal is always next on the block. So he has a leech feeding on his blood. He then feeds the leech to a frog, then he takes the frog, feeds it to a snake, then he takes the snake, feeds it to a vulture, and then...
Well, he tries to force feed it to a vulture.
God, that vulture didn't want that snake, and the snake's all like, I know what's going on, I saw the earlier scenes, I don't give it.
No, I know what's next.
Yeah. And then eventually, it leads to a dinner thing, and they take off the big chrome lid, and he's cooked, and now he's eating the vulture. So...
What's gonna eat Christopher Lee? Like, I want to see a fucking crocodile snack.
It was like a charming little bit of flair that they added to Mr. Midnight, but I can't help but feel there was a better punchline to that joke. They just didn't get there.
Yeah, because then we had several scenes. It was like every single scene with him. But then after he ate the vulture, I was like, wait, now it's done?
There's nothing left. There's nothing left to eat. I guess you gotta go, I don't know, I guess you gotta start over with the leech again. Do you think he does this often? Is this like a one-time thing, or is this like a weekly thing for Midnight? Where he's got like I wanna eat a vulture.
Maybe this explains his immortality. Some sort of vague filtering his own blood through different animals.
Maybe. I mean, as much as I liked Christopher Lee in this movie, he's also a very ill-defined villain. I kind of clued into what his major scheme was, but it seems like such a cockamamie roundabout way of achieving achieving it because so the government officials are made aware of this ploy because a hypno ray or whatever was stolen from some government facility that the U.S. owns that's located in Australia for whatever fucking reason. And, the Joint Chiefs of Staff and also two sexy ladies who just happen to be with the Joint Chiefs.
Basically, if there's any group of people in this movie, there's also a couple of sexy ladies in the back. Just for color.
So they say like, well, there's only one man who can track down where the missing hypno ray has gone to. They get through that by like a song the president sings called like We Need a Hero, which had like some of the laziest fucking dance choreography I've ever seen in a movie.
I mean, if there ever was a moment where, like, if I didn't know this information going into it, as soon as they started doing like that minimal choreography, there would have been a little voice in my head going like, is this from the Rocky Horror people? I'm getting some strong fucking vibes here. This is totally like lazy Richard O'Brien type choreography here. Just like a lot of hip movements, a lot of swinging arms back and forth.
He fucking wrote that number in an afternoon.
And so the giggle ray, the sole purpose within the plot was to steal the hypno ray then, right?
Yeah, what does Mr. Midnight do? He fucking blasts some security people with the giggle ray, kind of incapacitates them.
It's a horny ray, apparently, because everyone takes their clothes off and starts rolling around. And
through that, he manages to steal the fucking hypno ray.
Again, off camera.
And they said, like, well, fuck it, we gotta track down Captain Invincible. Because it's his old nemesis. Okay?
Because we have a movie. And we need to get the movie going, so we gotta track down Captain Invincible.
Yeah. Oh, but they have no idea that Mr. Midnight even exists. So they're not like, there's a supervillain, we need to find a superhero. Have a weapon stolen, therefore let's track down this old drunk who hasn't been seen in 30, 40 years.
Who presumably is the only superhero.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten so used to, these interconnected worlds where all of the superheroes hang up and team up and stuff. But the assumption that we are making with this universe is that Captain Invincible is and was the only superhero we've had on the planet. They certainly don't mention any other, because the president just immediately goes like, I know the guy, I know the only guy who can help, and it's all, well, if there was anyone else who maybe could have helped, I mean, that could have been fun too. Maybe they have like a lesser Batman show up, like an Australian Batman, that could be fun.
Or there are like replacement superheroes that have come up through the ranks, and they are not as effective as Captain Invincible. So they're around, and like, they're the ones that get taken out, and it's like, well, there's only one superhero left in the world, and that's Captain Invincible. We gotta track him down.
If they do create more superheroes in this universe, can they please not have the same origin story, though? That would be,
my God.
That would be great.
There's only one way to make superheroes. Ejaculating aliens. But only if you're having sex on the White House lawn? I don't know. The origin of Captain Invincible.
Yeah, his parents banged outside right at the same time that like a gaggle of aliens were watching. And simultaneously impregnated his mother.
Let's talk a little bit more about the president and his staff. Did either of you think there was going to be a reveal that the president turned out to be evil? Because he's such a sinister actor.
Sinister the entire time. Like, his go-to was smile outrageously wide directly to the camera.
I think it wasn't helped by the fact that that was obviously an Australian actor playing the American president. So he had sort of this affectation where it's all like, you're up to something, but it's all like, I think he's just concentrating really hard.
Well, I kept thinking so the bad guy took this hypno ray, eventually he's going to point it towards the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the president, and now it's, the full US government versus Captain Invincible. So that's why you cast, these bad looking people as these authoritative figures, but instead Mr. Midnight just uses the hypno ray on a bunch of ethnic minorities so that they will move into certain, a community that he's building just off the coast of Manhattan.
They just made this cabinet too interesting, and then they didn't do anything with them or make them characters. Like, one of the generals has both an eye patch and a robot hand. Mm-hmm. Why? I thought...
For that one magnetic scene.
Yeah, for the one... exactly.
I feel like he was hoarding the things, honestly. Like, he's like, okay, he gets both the eye patch and the metal hand, whereas, Joe Schmo next to him got nothing. I was like, oh...
Andrew, His magnet powers don't attract metal, it attracts clothing. We know this. We saw this happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a clothing magnet.
So they track down Captain Invincible inside this ruined castle or whatever in Australia, and they send this police woman who kind of knows Captain Invincible as just like this random vagrant that hangs around.
So this, well, because Captain Invincible saves her earlier in the day from one of those broad daylight muggings of priests that I guess happen in Australia all the time. And then these two random muggers also happen to have a flamethrower car. I thought there was going to be a reveal that they were working from midnight, and that's why they had all this tech. No, apparently the muggers in Australia just don't fuck around.
I mean, the fucking, like, popular joke is that everything in Australia is dangerous and can kill you. I didn't literally think they meant, like, fucking flamethrowers on the hoods of cars. I mean, this predates, like, the timeline for Mad Max, but I guess they were already well on their way.
It's the time zone thing. Australia's, just a good, 30 years ahead.
Gotta be safe.
Yeah. She goes to recruit Captain Invincible. He says no. President shows up and says, I was that Boy Scout that you fucking killed my shoulder. Yeah, I can prove it. And he, takes his shirt off in a weird momentary scene and is like, it's called the Mystic Mark.
Well,
and
because Captain Invincible said, well, no, he just says, you left a mark on my shoulder, and then this fucking bullshit comes out of nowhere where Captain Invincible's all like, it's the Mystic Mark. That means I have to do what you say. And it's all like, what is this magic out of nowhere all of a sudden?
We were like, oh, are his powers magic based? No, they come from aliens and he has a computer brain. They're all kind of sci-fi. But also, why fucking overcomplicate this prior relationship that the president has with the superhero? Just say I looked up to you as a kid and I did great things in my life because of you. Why bring it? You don't even have to have a mystic mark. You don't have to have a moment where he crushes his shoulder. Just say you meant a lot to me as a kid and
I was that Boy Scout.
Again.
That could be enough. That could be enough to get him fucking going. It doesn't have to have some fucking mystic bullshit that never comes back and is never referenced again.
No, superheroes clearly saving the world from Nazis is not a good enough reason for them to get back in the superheroing game.
And then later on, there's a phone call between Captain Invincible and the president, and after they hang up, the president's kind of like, I don't know, maybe this wasn't a good idea. I was all, well, what about the fucking mystic mark on your fucking shoulder? I thought that was the whole point.
Did that mean nothing to you? I mean,
It's getting to be these days a mystic mark doesn't mean anything anymore.
I mean, when Captain Invincible sees the president again, he's like, oh my god, you're that kid, I gotta do this for you. But by the end of the movie, after he saves the day and he's shaking the president's hand and he's like, well, he's glad to have you back, Captain Invincible. And Alan Arkin's like, yeah, right, I'll keep in touch.
Yeah, we'll get lunch or something.
He doesn't give a shit.
I guess you're not bonded by magic anymore.
Alright, the deal's off. Leave it a fuck alone.
Okay, so Captain Invincible is recruited by the president and Officer Patty, who is a policewoman, despite the fact that never once is she ever dressed as a policewoman.
No. Specifically a police person or something? That they have that brief scene of where they discuss that women's lib is a thing now.
Because it was the 80s and we had to bring women's lib into every movie that we had back then. But why? There was multiple scenes. She had so many costume changes. There were scenes where she was in a police precinct. Why did they never have her dressed like a cop? What? In that opening scene, she's just dressed casually with a designer handbag, and she's getting a hot dog, and this woman comes up to her and says, officer, there's that homeless man over there. How did you know she was an officer? She's never dressed like one.
I know plainclothes cops are a thing, especially if they have to be undercover. But
sure,
when you're undercover, you usually don't address the undercover officer as officer.
Yeah, there was a lot of assumption going on in this scene, yeah.
Try that in real life, just see if it works. Just go up to plainclothes people and be like, officer, you gotta go to the alley and save someone, and just
are you a cop? You have to tell me if you're a cop.
Yeah, eventually I'm gonna be right.
No, they had to keep going back to that women's lib is a thing because Captain Invincible is a bit old-fashioned for the most part. He's
patriotic. We'll say that.
He's patriotic, but he's also like patriotic in the way that people were patriotic in the 1950s. You know, people don't say hello to their neighbor anymore, and you know, we used to have like love for this country, and like now it's lost his way, and you know, rock and roll music's too loud and shit like that. What does he have? Like, he has this transistor radio on like a wristwatch that I guess broadcasts old fireside chat and like God Bless America and all that kind of stuff, and that's where he gets like his sense of patriotic duty. And when that goes off the air, that's what disillusioned him.
That's what started the drinking.
Yeah, that's what started the drinking.
Rather pointedly and surprisingly, given that this is a movie of its time, there isn't really much of a romantic connection between Officer Patty and Captain Amazing. I don't think they share a kiss at all at the end. They're just kind of teammates and partners, and they kind of, there's not even really much of a flirtation. She doesn't take anything from him, Jameson. There isn't something specifically that she takes of him. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, like he's over there and he's, you know, a fine specimen of a man, but she doesn't feel that way.
No, he's not.
she's not. She's not fit. I'm trying to get you to say she doesn't take a shine to him.
Oh, fuck you.
Look, man, I got the shine get sound effect.
Yeah.
I know you hate bits. I know you hate recurring bits. But if you can find a way to just say that more often, because I would love to just drop in more shine gets, maybe once an episode.
I'll cook some up for you.
Anyway, take it under consideration.
But like more to the point of the romantic interest. Like, keep in mind, a couple of years ago, there was that famous scene in Superman the movie where Superman and Lois Lane have that romantic flight at night.
So did you just say a couple of years ago in Superman the movie, a movie that came out in 1978?
Compared to this movie, which came out in like 83, yeah, this would have been like a few years removed.
It's not a few years at all. It's like decades. Sorry, I'm splitting hairs.
Part of this
Sorry.
Part
Go
of this
ahead.
movie.
Superman the movie came out in like 79 or something.
78, yeah.
78, yeah. So like that wasn't like.
Oh, I see what you mean.
full
You're not
10
saying
years.
a few years compared to now. Okay, that's fine. Andrew's throwing his hands up. Please continue with your point. I'm sorry, I won't interrupt you.
Well, there's nothing romantic about the relationship between Patty and Captain Invincible. Like, when they have their flight together, she practically just, like, sits on him like she's riding side saddle on a horse. But, interestingly enough, I think that was more or less the original intention of the Lois Lane and Superman character. They weren't really meant to be, like, boyfriend and girlfriend until, like, the fucking comic code of the, 50s, specified that, like, well, you can't imply that the men in these comic books, these funny books, are gay. You gotta pair them up romantically. She was always just supposed to be like a professional rival to Clark Kent. It's a little truer to the original source material, I'll say.
Yes, because as we all know, if a man is friends with a woman, he's obviously gay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They did have that, 5-second fuzzy scene
Yeah, that
in
was
this
weird.
film.
Yeah.
That was weird.
I think there was a kiss in there, but it was more just like a drunken or tired, face smooch, a face smush, and then, immediate recoil.
That whole scene in her apartment was just odd. That's where it really kind of clued into me that, I don't think Alan Arkin really wants to be in this movie. And that is also the scene where, yes, Andrew, he takes a bite out of the bar and has, these weird hallucinations of a lizard and Hitler.
I can't explain that. I cannot explain. I can't even begin to explain what happened there.
No, and it's never elaborated on again.
He's getting his magnet powers back, and they're not coming back all at once. They're kind of coming back. So, he's over at her house for, a steak and french fries, and his magnet powers...
Put some shrimp on the barbie for you.
He's got, his magnet powers are going everywhere. Her toaster oven is exploding, things are falling off the wall. At this point, if I'm this woman, my takeaway is, you need to get out of here because I have, 5 forms of cancer at this point. You need to get away from me, Captain Invincible. This is not going well.
We gotta go to, a wooden cabin in the woods or in the outback or something where, my electronics won't kill us.
I gotta get, a rubber apron to, hang over my genitals if I'm gonna even be talking to you in the same room. This is bad.
It's really just an excuse for this movie to, almost at random intervals, for things to just go haywire and for goofy shit to start happening in that movie. You can anticipate a lull in the plot coming. The electronics will just, spark and, fly across the room randomly. And that's, I think, where, the abstract comedy mostly comes from, that has nothing to do with the plot.
I'll tell you one thing, Jameson. There was one similarity that the scene between Superman and Lois and the scene between Patty and Captain Invincible had when they were flying through the air. They both had weird poetry involved in both of the scenes. It's just Captain Invincible added music to his. I'd wager it actually makes more sense in Return of Captain Invincible. That's still one of the weirdest parts of that Superman movie, is they're flying through the air. And Lois just starts doing her beat poetry for like no fun reason.
I mean, like they're rudely interrupting that beautiful John Williams score for her to do that stupid poem. If anything, Captain Invincible was parodying that. It has to be.
Can we also establish that the main time they're flying there, they're flying all the way from Australia to New York City, and she's just sitting side saddle on him that entire time?
Out of all the powers Captain Invincible has, super speed is not one of them. So that was like the full 16-hour flight from Australia to America, sitting on Alan Arkin's ass. She would be frozen. She would be frozen to death.
Oh god, what was that other part in the apartment with her where like she's doing her musical number to, sort of get his spirits up, and she, in her choreography, she like stumbles over a chair, and they kept it in the movie.
Also, the ending of the song, where like she's building to this big crescendo, and it's the song, it's all like, "You can do it, Captain! You're the best, Captain! You can do it!" And he goes over to the record player, he just stops the song.
Do it.
It's fine, let's move on.
I'll do it, just shut up.
That's it. Alright, you convinced me.
You say, Jameson, Alan Arkin appears to act like he doesn't want to be in this movie. That's kind of most of the movies he's in. He's had like an entire career where he kind of gives off this vibe that he'd rather be anywhere else. He has a very small part in that Dumbo remake that came out a couple of years ago. He's only in it for like 5 minutes, but there's like a moment where he and Danny DeVito are sitting in an audience and they're watching like circus stuff happening, and Danny DeVito's all wide-eyed. He's all like, "Oh, pink elephants!" And Alan Arkin's like, "So what? Move on." It's like, he's not acting. He just didn't want to be there on that day. It's like, Alan, you're in the movie for 2 minutes. Can you pretend to want to be here, maybe?
It's very delightful for me to see, because I love that curmudgeon-y attitude that he has. He just comes off as a guy who never wanted to be an actor. They just like pulled him off the street and said like, "We just need you to hit this mark and say this line, and we'll give you $5.
I will say this, I did see some genuine enjoyment on his part in the food fight scene. There's a big food fight in like a pastrami, I don't know, place.
A deli.
It's a pastrami! Yes!
I don't know.
That location is called a pastrami place.
Delicatessen.
Now and forever.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. But, which was astounding to me, because I've never before seen a food fight where people are both lobbing very slow-moving pies at each other while also shooting guns with bullets at each other. And for whatever reason, the most dangerous weapon in the entire scene looked to be a sausage maker that was propelling sausages like a machine gun.
It was like this bratwurst Gatling gun.
Yeah.
This is jumping ahead a bit, but since we're here, let's talk about this deli, because this deli is pastrami place is a great set piece. It's really great because they go because it's a front for Mr. Midnight. This is, his evil lair is underneath the deli, and they go in there and they both start putting on exaggerated Jewish voices. I guess in Alan Arkin's case, he's using this. Is Alan Arkin Jewish? I don't know. Unimportant. Anyway, but they go up and they find out that it's a front because the deli owner starts spreading mayonnaise on a pastrami sandwich. He starts spreading the mayonnaise on the meat? I would have thought something was up too if I saw someone do that. I've never seen anyone make a sandwich like that before. It's like, you're not really a deli owner. Maybe he's not a deli owner, but he's probably made a sandwich in his fucking life.
Yeah, oh my god, he's on to me. Time to pull out my gigantic gefilte fish gun. That shit brought me right back to this movie. Like, there's so much stupid nonsense that does happen in this movie that's like kind of unrelated to the superhero plot, that when you do see something like Fish Shake Gun, that reminds me of the Adam West Batman show. Now I'm right back into this.
My favorite part of that moment is he starts firing with his fish gun. He goes, "You want schmaltz?
You want schmaltz?"
That was a great, I wrote that line, Dux.
I also love that the two people he was trying to shoot had ducked like 5 seconds earlier.
Yeah.
And he's still like, no. This is the height I decided I was going to shoot at. This is what I'm shooting at.
And as usual, Captain Invincible's powers are malfunctioning, so like he just resorts to like chucking pies at the two assailants. And then when he runs out of cream pies, he pulls out a fucking pie symbol.
Where did he get that from? Why is that there?
Okay, and also I was like, alright, cool. So like they're doing like, this superhero's doing some like non-violent way to end the fight. He's throwing some pies. And they're like, oh yeah, and then the guy with the gun just like has been sliced to ribbons by the meat slicer. Also he wasn't, because they didn't have enough money to show that. Oh yeah, he's totally dead from his...
It was a weird cut where all of a sudden his head was there and then they took off his Jewish man mask. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no, I really did love that pastrami place scene. That was great. I love that a lot. Yeah, so, oh god, we jumped ahead a bunch. So, okay, so Captain Invincible goes through trials, he goes through tests.
Try to get his powers back. Even though, like, it's not really defined if he lost them or if he just doesn't remember how to use them or if they're just malfunctioning.
He boozed
He's out of practice.
So many years, yeah. There's like the scene early on where they're trying to get him to flip. Another thing is his powers seem to be activated by, like, catchphrases.
Yeah, like Shazam!
I mean, there was a reason why Shazam had to say Shazam. There's no logical reason why Captain Invincible has to say into the blue before he takes off flying. And also,
which was his first words as a baby.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
he was on the ceiling, so I suppose makes sense. Yeah, okay.
So he had to say into the blue to fly. He had to say begin program to use his computer brain, and he had to say magnet on to use his magnetic powers. That sounds like a very ineffective superhero to me. Gag him, you know?
Hey there, audience. At this point in the podcast, we suddenly started hearing a high-pitched noise that was super irritating. And we couldn't figure out where it was coming from. So Jameson had to restart the Zoom meeting. We now return you to the episode several minutes later.
Aye.
Sounds good now.
Okay.
I'm gonna blame magnetic powers.
Yeah, sorry about the interruption to the podcast, folks. Andrew's magnet powers were screwing up again, and he didn't. All of our clothes flew off of our body mid-podcast. It was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, actually, that's a good time to mention that. Yes, in one of the trial scenes, Captain Invincible's powers go haywire, and the guy with the mechanical hand shoots off. Everyone's glasses and medals like fly onto his body. And every woman's top is removed through the magnet powers. These poor women in this movie. Actually, the poor woman who played Patricia, because in the scene where she and Captain Invincible go to a vacuum cleaner store to follow up on a lead and are attacked by living vacuum cleaners, in a scene that totally makes sense. She's like writhing on the floor, and once again, a vacuum cleaner sucks her shirt off. And God, what an exploitive piece of shit.
I mean, at least with a vacuum cleaner, that makes sense why a woman's shirt would get sucked off. Why would a magnet? I guess the idea is that they're wearing jewelry, and then the jewelry gets caught in the shirt, and then everything.
Well, I think it was the buttons. The idea was that they had magnetic buttons composed out of benihillium.
Benihillium.
Well, that comes back a little later, where there's like a scene where there's like a weird moment where we see Mr. Midnight, and he's got like a scale model of New York in a swimming pool, and as he's in the swimming pool describing what's going to happen with all the bombs or whatever with his master plan and stuff, he's submerged in the swimming pool. In the swimming pool with him is Julius, his weird monkey sidekick, in a flotation device, and a butler. There's always a butler in this pool, and it is this butler's one job to stand waist deep, fully clothed in the pool with a tray in case Mr. Midnight wants an aperitif, I guess, while he's like This guy is always in the pool. He's never not in the pool.
He wants to have like his dinner prepared, and then the speed ramps up where like the waiter is disrupting, I guess, Mr. Midnight's mistresses on his bed.
Who are having sex with the monkey man.
Yep.
They're like all over him. Okay, who is this monkey person? We know his name is Julius. We know he's maybe like a genetic experiment. What else? What connection does he have? Here's the thing. When they were showing Captain Invincible's origins or whatever, and it showed, we talked about this, right? We talked about, like, the aliens beaming down while his mom was having sex.
We did, yeah, unfortunately.
In the background of the aliens, I thought one of them was the Monkey Man, because they had, like, ears and whatnot. And I'm all like, is there going to be like a reveal that one of his alien DNA founders or whatever is like secretly working for Mr. Midnight? And then no insight is brought into that. And so I think my takeaway is, no, I think they just had one mask. I think they just had like one mask to go around among scenes, and they just passed that back and forth.
My big takeaway from that sequence is, while all that shenanigans are happening in Mr. Midnight's bedroom, Christopher Lee is just sitting patiently at the dinner table.
Waiting for his vulture.
In like a scene that is obviously sped up, which, you know, you're seeing the extras run around in the background for like,
Too long.
in real time, would have been in real time for like 5 minutes. And there's poor, distinguished Sir Christopher Lee just sitting at this dinner table.
Distinguished, yes, but he was, you know, the man who used the silly ray, whatever, you know, to encourage everyone to take off their tops and run around and frolic.
Is that it? Did they get hit by the silly ray? I don't know. Look, whenever something doesn't make sense in this movie, just assume there's a ray involved.
Yes.
Someone got hit by some sort of ray, and now the plot doesn't make any sense. It was a plot ray. We all got hit by a plot ray. Can we talk about my favorite character in this movie, the inconsistent narrator, who only shows up to explain to the audience shit we already know?
I think my favorite one was essentially the narrator saying, hey, we're still in Australia, where we've been for the last half hour, in case you were curious.
Yeah, well, there's a thing where it's all like, well, he's gotta go to Broadway, and his computer brain malfunctions, and he starts going off about, we have to go to Broadway Street, Broadway in New York and everything, because he's still under the assumption he's in New York. And then it cuts to the location where they have to go, the vacuum shop, I think. And then this narrator, who only comes in maybe 4 times throughout the runtime of the movie.
This is not Broadway, Manhattan, but Broadway, Sydney, Australia.
Fucking thank you! There's a kernel of an almost great joke. I'm really tickled by the idea of a comedy movie having a narrator who only comes in occasionally, and when he narrates, it's all stuff that we've already figured out a while ago. I feel like this was an accident, but if someone were to do this on purpose in a movie, that would be really funny.
There's something great about an ever-present narrator that other characters can acknowledge but never interact with. Like, they did a couple of jokes like that with Arrested Development. I did a couple of jokes like that with Kilroy.
I don't know if we could call this narrator ever present, though, since, again, shows up like 4 times.
True.
He's, like, hitting on, like, a girl outside of the sound booth and the movie's going on. He's all like, oh, shit, are they at Broadway? No, meanwhile, at Broadway? Fuck, that's like 2 scenes ago. Shit.
I mean, I'm a theater actor, and I gotta say, like, having one of those roles where you've only got, like, 4 lines in the entire show, that's harder than when you got 100. You gotta wait for that cue.
You kind of wrote me as that sort of narrator character for the Titus musical where the story's going on, and then I only show up to just, again, I sort of elaborated on things that the audience kind of already knew, and then I left. So, hey, did you rip off The Return of Captain Invincible? Add him to the list. Andrew Wade on the list.
Actually, funny to that, Andrew, if you recall, like in our acting class back in high school, there would be like those days where everyone in the class had to be like in a scene, like we'd be like all be paired off into different groups, and everyone would have to write for everybody else. You know, me not being a natural actor, the only times I would ever get a line were like usually, you know, 1 or 2 sentences, and they would always be at the very end of the scenes. But they were great because like everyone would have like their moment to shine, and then I would just like walk in and say like, "That's a huge bitch," and walk out. I loved it. It was a good use of me in a project.
Did your high school do the high school theater production of Deuce Bigelow?
They as well.
Oh man, that's a perfect example of a very outdated misogynistic joke that still makes me laugh. Mm-hmm. Just from off camera. That's a huge bitch! Anyway.
Yeah.
It's just the delivery of it. I apologize, women. What happens in this movie next?
Me too.
What happens in this movie next?
Don't Captain Invincible and Patricia get framed somehow? They get blamed for something. They get set up somehow. After
the giggle gun hits all of the American flunkies, and somehow it's considered that, well, clearly Captain Invincible is responsible for this giggle gun, and so all the Australian police run in to question them.
It's a ray that makes them all crazy, so that means straitjackets appear on them out of nowhere as well. Where do those straitjackets come from? They're just all in
Who
them.
attached them?
I mean, I just assumed that Mr. Midnight's henchmen, that's how they restrained them. They put them in those
there's enough of them, yeah.
Because, like, someone had to hit him with the fucking giggle gun.
I figured it was a very dramatic, like an entire mini-movie there where just one by one they keep getting hit by the giggle gun. So first it's just one of them and like, well, let's put him in a straitjacket, you know, and then they're like slowly, then another one gets hit and then another one gets hit, right? So there's always someone in the room who has not been hit with the giggle gun yet, who's like just trying to like, just dreading that it's going to happen to them next.
I mean, that seems like a lot of straitjackets that they must have at the Sydney Opera House, where I think like that is where the bulk of like the training sequences with the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Captain Invincible happen for some reason.
I mean, have you seen their Pagliacci? You're gonna need a straitjacket after that, let me tell you.
So Captain Invincible and Patricia, they kind of go incognito while they kind of plan their next move, even though Captain Invincible is like clearly in like his full silver leotard that you can't miss him.
He's only incognito until the song starts, in which case he will take off his trench coat on a public train.
Yeah, you were saying that like that was your favorite song, where he's like talking about who Mr. Midnight was.
It was like a weird villain song that was half sung by the hero. It would like, cause normally a villain song is like, I'm the villain and this is why I'm evil. This was, I'm the villain, this is why I'm evil. He's the villain, this is why he's evil. I haven't seen that before. Yes, I do think this is, at the time, I think this is the second best song in the movie. The best song in the movie is Christopher Lee tempting Alan Arkin with his full liquor cabinet. That was great. That was
the onus for why we watched this movie.
Yes, and you were right to recommend it.
Did I miss something, or was it just not explained as to how he figured out that Mr. Midnight was behind this? Or was it just like,
radios,
he was just on the subway and went?
It's one of those, like, there's only one man capable of, like, doing all this and this frame-up job, and that's gotta be Mr. Midnight. Presumably the only supervillain in this world.
He put, like, a radio on his head, and he talked to FDR or something. I don't know. I will be perfectly honest, the movie kind of lost me at this. But when we get to the inside of the Statue of Liberty's head, the movie kind of lost me for 10 minutes. I'm not gonna lie. I couldn't follow what was going on.
Well, the Statue of Liberty was, I assume, essentially Captain Invincible's Fortress of Solitude.
Yes.
Where he had, like, his supercomputer and, like, where he would go to, like, his crime lab, right? And in that sequence, he has, like, this nightmare where he's having this, is supposed to be a two-way conversation between him and FDR, when really it's just him. To me, it looked like he was just imagining he was responding to one of FDR's speeches.
I would like to tell Mr. President, there is danger ahead. What? We cannot escape danger, or the fear of it, by crawling into bed and pulling the covers over our heads.
But can you tell me, please, how long will this struggle go on?
He was a man shouting at his television is what he was.
Yeah. And then he says, like, this country's lost its way. I'm gonna stop Mr. Midnight. And after that, I'm done with being a hero and all that crap. And, he puts the radio on. He manages to track down where Mr. Midnight's entrance to his lair from, like, this deli. But, in that deli scene, before, like, the whole fight breaks out, that's where we find that these associates of Mr. Midnight are telling all of these ethnic minorities to go, hey, check out this new district. Like, go check out Sicilian Heights. Go check out Afro Heights.
Afro Acres is what that one
Afro
was.
Acres,
I wrote down Afro Acres, and then immediately after I wrote yikes.
Yeah. So what Mr. Midnight's plan is to get all of the minorities out of New York and onto, like, all on these different other plots of land, and then kill them all because Mr. Midnight is a white supremacist.
Well, I mean, he was hanging out with the Nazis in the newsreel, so that's not surprising. This plan...
Why do we keep finding movies like this, Kaz? Why do they always kind of, like, dovetail back to, like, awful real-world things like racism and rape?
Because the world is a terrible place, and, you know...
And I go to movies for escapism, goddammit.
But we don't watch movies like that on this podcast, Jameson. We watch movies movies.
not?
We watch movies by people who think that they're trying to make a message about something, and they are so far off base, it comes around to a place where it's really uncomfortable. I don't know. It's fine making him a Nazi, because he's the bad guy. I don't care about that.
Sure.
See, when Lex Luthor just wanted to make some more oceanfront property to earn some money, people ridiculed that as a villain plot. They're like, that's not enough. We need some genocide.
Because we see him blow up his scale model, and then at the same time, there are explosions and crowds running around. I believe he sinks the Statue of Liberty, or attempts to, at one point.
While, like, the awful explosions on, like, the actual real-world properties where everyone's, like, running around in panic, his scale model in his lair blows up, and that includes the Statue of Liberty sinking.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what you're thinking of. But that implies that, like, those things are happening at the same time.
That's what I thought.
And they just don't have the budget to, like, sink the actual Statue of Liberty.
Right. But did those communities actually blow up? Did Captain Invincible fail to save all the minorities? The movie seems to imply that that's what happened.
That one still image of the newspaper says that the genocide was foiled, but the movie never shows it actually foiled or shows how Captain Invincible saves those people.
You're quite right, Kaz. Like, the movie flat out ran out of money to show something like that. The movie tells us that he managed to save everybody, I assume off camera. But you know what that screams to me as? This movie opens with a propaganda reel, and it ends with a propaganda reel.
This movie is pure American propaganda all the way through. It's just American propaganda from Australians. So there's a weird sort of disconnect there.
This being like a fucking parody somewhat of the Christopher Reeve Superman movie, there wasn't much of that. There was one throwaway line where he says he's for truth, justice, and the American way. And, they even counter that with saying, well, you're gonna have to go after every member of Congress. And that's as close to that movie gets to, like, fucking rah America.
And there's weird other pockets of patriotism, too. Like, Patty ends up saving Captain Invincible. Like, she knocks him out of, like, the haze that Midnight gets him into with all of the alcohol by, like, playing America the Beautiful, and he hears that, and then it cuts to her, and she's got, like, visible tears in her face, and he's like, she is 100% Australian. There's no reason why she should be getting sentimental over an American song here at this point.
But it's just nice to see that Captain Invincible's love of the drink is not as powerful as his love for America. That's what saves the...
Yeah, the plot to, alright, I'm gonna trap Captain Invincible with his alcoholism. At least that made sense as a villainous plot. How he was captured, of course, from the delicatessen where we were. The pastrami place.
Oh, right. I didn't know what that fancy word was. Yeah, no, I'm good.
The endless pit dropping him a mile below the earth, where Mr. Midnight is, apparently.
I do love like how Mr. Midnight had multiple pits.
He had so many pits.
He had pits for days.
All designed to capture.
And Captain Invincible literally fell for every one of them.
He can fly! Why are pits your way to capture the guy you know who can fly?
There was one moment of overcompensation from the film's point where Mr. Midnight hits a button that says Snake Pit, and then Captain Invincible falls, and we see him holding on to the side of the snake pit, and as he's doing that, there's a snake outside of the pit, and it's like, filmmakers, we saw him push the button that says snake pit. You don't need to put a snake there, so we already get it. We already get what type of pit that is.
If anything, it would be good if he just trapped him into one animal pit where there are, like, lions and, bears or whatever, like, or snakes, because then Captain Invincible's magnet powers are useless against fucking organic threats.
Like I say, this movie has already established that vultures are stronger than snakes. So it really should have been a vulture pit.
Oh my god, a vulture pit. It's like you fall in the vulture pit and then you just die of exposure.
No, that's why the vulture didn't want to eat the snake. It wasn't dead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as you were saying, Andrew, this, I think, is maybe the most interesting concept this movie comes up with, is that we have a superhero who is invulnerable. His name is Captain Invincible. He cannot be killed by traditional measures, so the villain is playing with the fact that he's a hardcore alcoholic. I think that's a really interesting idea. It's just kind of a shame that they introduce it in the last 10 minutes of the movie. They introduce it just long enough for Christopher Lee to have an amazing song.
A black Russian snow-pink lady, give her the Singapore sling. A Moscow mule is not your baby, so highball the vodka and name your sting.
and then he gets over it because of America. It ends really weird, too, because Christopher Lee just shows him all of this booze. Then he sings a song about how great booze is.
You feel like a wreck, try a horse's neck, or a cherry with a cherry in the new homicides. If you don't name your poison, I'll have to get the poison. The spirit of adventure opens one side.
And then Alan Arkin just drops to his knees.
And what a fucking song it is.
It's amazing. Alan Arkin just drops to his knees. He's all like, no, he's right. I need the booze. And then Christopher Lee hands him a can of Sterno. And I guess his plan, I'm going to make him want to have a drink, but now I'm going to give him this oven cleaner, and he'll drink the oven cleaner. It's like, I thought you were a Nazi supervillain. Your evil plan is you're going to get him to drink poison?
It's alcohol. It's the strongest alcohol that he could possibly drink, I guess.
I suppose.
Here's America the Beautiful. Christopher Lee retreats to his pool where the monkey is still in the inner tube and the butler is still serving drinks. And then Christopher Lee says, today New York, tomorrow the world. And then Captain Invincible comes in, throws a giant globe at him because of hubris, and then the movie immediately ends.
Yeah, Christopher Lee didn't even get like a dramatic like slow motion death or something. It was just like you blink and oh, I guess the villain's gone.
Yeah, the movie wraps itself up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It does end with Captain Invincible and Patty flying through the sky together, where he's got a megaphone and he's just yelling down at the people of New York City, saying something like, "Let's give it another shot, everybody."
That is the last line in the movie. Let's give it another shot. Maybe we can get it right this time. Very John Rambo. Maybe we can win the Vietnam War this time. Maybe America 2.
There's also a lot of doubt in that. It's like, maybe. We could try, I guess.
Not exactly the most inspiring words you'd hear from a superhero.
And then the assumption is that because Captain Invincible said, after this is over, I'm going to stop being a superhero, he stops being a superhero and he goes back to drinking. And that's where we'll find him for Invincible 2, starring 80-year-old Alan Arkin. God, can you imagine?
No, that would be Captain Invincible 3, because this was the return of Captain Invincible. We haven't seen the first Captain Invincible movie.
I think in the sequel he's got to take on those henchmen who were putting dog droppings on the streets and doing graffiti.
Oh, you know why they were doing that? They wanted to force people out of their neighborhoods and onto the fucking Little Italy.
Is that how they were getting the minorities to go to the police?
Yes.
They were just putting dog turds everywhere? Wow, how?
Yes, that is exactly wow.
Also,
they have a hypnotizing ray, but they couldn't use that to get them to go there first.
Just use the hypno ray first. Also, I hate to break it to you, this is a bit of a stereotype, but minorities are used to graffiti.
What about minorities living in New York City in the 80s?
There's no graffiti. Yeah, there's no graffiti in New York City in the 80s.
Oh, you could eat off that sidewalk. It was so clean in New York City.
Were they writing like discriminatory graffiti? Was that part of it? I don't know. I think I was transfixed by the one henchman who was like a half punk. That guy was great. I like that. He had a mohawk, but only on one side.
That's the Two-Face villain, yeah. Like henchman.
All right.
That's the movie.
Was there anything we didn't mention?
Overall, if it seems like we've been jumping around this whole movie, it's because the movie scenes don't really need to be seen in order.
Very true.
You kind of get the whole experience either way. I really wanted this movie at the end to just do a hard swerve to, I'm moving to Australia, you Americans are just crazy.
One thing that drew my eye somewhat was in the first scene where we meet the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the President, there's a Coke machine in the background. Do you guys notice that? All right, well, there's a Coke machine in the background.
That's bad product placement, basically, is when they I could be wanting a delicious Coca-Cola right now, but no, it failed.
But I mean, like, when they were dressing that set, that was like a real world thing that was just in the Sydney Opera House. Couldn't they have removed it? And if it was actually meant to be part of a scene where, like, everyone here in this war chamber here, they like soda, there it is. I don't know if that was there to be as a gag or if we weren't meant to see it, but it was there.
Hey man, you don't want to be in the war room and then get a powerful thirst for an ice cold Sprite and then not have one readily available. But you still have to put coins in. It's not like one of those ones where you just push the button and then it comes out. Australia doesn't have the budget for this. But you know, everything's a little bit different in Australia. Fax machines sound like Pac-Man video games.
They do. They used that sound effect several times.
Anytime a piece of technology is used in this movie, like, it sounds like Pac-Man.
I mean, there were weird little sound effects of it. Like, a moment near the end that I really liked, there was a news reporter who was talking about, Captain Invincible has stopped Mr. Midnight, and when he says Captain Invincible, he pulls out a Captain Invincible action figure just from behind his back, and it kind of goes like, meh.
The ethnic populations trapped on the floating sections were rescued by Captain Invincible.
And then he moves on. It's all like, what the fuck was that? What was the point of that? The last thing that I want to say before we go into our final thoughts, there's a little bit of trivia that I found out here that I think is really cool. Apparently, this movie was one of Terry Pratchett's favorite movies. In an interview, he was quoted as saying, "May I also add that the film The Return of Captain Invincible, which is a series of bad moments pasted together with great songs and a budget of 4p, is also a regularly viewed video in the Pratchett household." So there we go. There's one fan. One fan of this movie.
Yeah, that's one recommendation.
Speaking of recommendations, Andrew, Jameson, would you recommend The Return of Captain Invincible?
You know what? I mean, I am a fan of stupid, absurdist, campy stuff, so absolutely, yes. I would recommend this film. I would recommend it viewing with someone else, and just, know that you can leave the room for a few minutes and come back, if you need to, if you want to just, make some food, you don't have to pause it at all.
You won't miss it.
Yeah, no one's got a gun to your head.
You'll get full experience.
I think I would recommend this movie, but for, specific reasons. I think the early stuff with, the newsreel is good, clean, poking fun at superhero stuff that I enjoy. I think Christopher Lee is, a very good singer, and I've listened to him on, the Charlemagne album, so he's fuck yeah. So he's great, and the two songs that he's in are really good. And honestly, most of the comedy for me just came from, Alan Arkin just not being super 100% committed to this. That fucking one scene where they strap him to the brain machine or whatever. They flip a light on and he's like, that goddamn light, turn that off. And I'm like, that was in camera. That was ad-libbed. Yeah, so, it's not the best movie I've ever seen. It's not, I don't know, it's wacky in certain ways. There's a vacuum cleaner fight. That's kind of fucking weird to see. There are better comedies that make more sense that are out there, but there's a lot to chuckle at in this and kind of laugh at for its wrong reasons. So yeah, that's a kind of half-hearted recommend from me.
Definitely.
Something we didn't mention, the telephone sequence where clearly neither actor knew what the other actor was saying.
Yeah, that was something.
So they were just doing line readings based off, I think this is what their other line is, and they were wrong every time.
That was definitely one of the worst acted, worst shot, worst edited scenes in the movie is the call between the President and Captain Invincible. Neither actor knew what the other one was saying. And that's easy to do. You have the screenplay right there. Someone else can say the line.
Good morning, sir.
Captain Invincible. It's great to hear your voice.
Good, good. Sir, I have some information about the Hypnoray.
You do?
Midnight's got it, and I think I know where to find him.
Are you sure about this, Mr. Midnight?
Ha-ha.
Of course, I believe you. Believe me, I believe you. It's just that I'm sitting here with the Joint Chiefs.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'll echo what Jameson said. Yeah, as this movie's a real mess. It's not always a fun mess, but I'd say it's worth sitting through for the real standout moments. The fight in the deli, most of everything Christopher Lee does, that's just fun. It's just fun to watch him in his element. He's almost never a disappointment.
Yeah.
If he's in anything, it's usually worth a cursory watch, and I'd say the same thing about this. So, a very light, half-hearted recommend. Sure, why not? Give it a shot. It's not the worst thing we've ever watched.
It's one of the strangest, though.
Debatable. Well, Andrew Wade, thanks so much, buddy. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Thanks for being here, dude. Good to see you again.
Spending your snowy Saturday doing this. So what's going on in your life? Do you have any upcoming projects you want people to know about? And if not, what's something that you've seen recently that you recommend people check out?
Let's see, I mean, it's still pandemic, so that limits projects.
Is that still going on? God, change the channel.
Working on grants and such right now. Recently I've been watching the WandaVision, been really enjoying that.
What do you think of that?
I love it. Every episode is set in a different decade of sitcoms, of television and such, and so in terms of sheerly just playing with the format, the best part about that show for me is the soundtracks they get for the theme music every episode. episode is just spot on. Like, you can just listen to the credits of that show and you're like, oh, this is the 90s. How is the generic music they've put together remind me of every single show I watched in the 90s? So that's my current recommendation. No idea when this is coming out, but you should watch WandaVision.
I'm interested to see if season 1 sticks the landing, because they're setting up a lot, but yeah, no, it's a pretty damn intriguing mystery. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Jameson, what do you got going on right now?
Nothing at the moment that I could that I'm really getting myself into now. I just want to throw this out there. If people are looking for, on the topic of superhero media, I would just encourage people to, if they want to see a good piece of media that Superman is in, check out the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited show. I fucking love that series when it was on. My friends and I have recently got into Valheim, which is this awesome co-op crafting survival Viking game where you're running around making villages and fighting off trolls and crap like that. And one thing that I want to plug, even though the Vancouver Canucks are really bad at the moment, I recently watched a game live at the Rio Theater because during the pandemic they cannot show these.
Sorry, where?
The Rio Theater, which is now kind of
the Rio Sports Bar, you mean? Oh, right.
Yeah. So for people who may not know, the Rio Theater is this independently owned movie theater that would just have, it's kind of famous in Vancouver. It's a real cult movie theater. It was one of the early ones to show screenings of The Room that would have Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero show up. It was really recently going through some financial troubles where the whole city kind of rallied behind it to support it. Ryan Reynolds and Seth Rogen and Kevin Smith and all those guys showed their love for it. But during the pandemic, BC's not allowing them to show or have movie screenings. So to get around that, they've now sort of rebranded themselves as a Rio Sports Bar. So if people are in Vancouver and they want to watch a live hockey game or a UFC event or, WrestleMania that's coming up, go support the Rio. It's a fabulous time. And that's really all I want to plug and get out there.
Yeah, no, I echo those sentiments. Yeah, there's some weird bullshit logic behind why bars can be open, but why entertainment venues can't, even though they're following the same restrictions that everyone is. I'm of the mind that we still should just not be going anywhere, but I do also think that the restrictions that they're putting on entertainment venues like the Rio is stupid and it's destroying people's livelihoods, and this is a workaround that they've figured out how to do, but hopefully things will get a little less crazy and they can go back to showing awesome movies again. But I'm glad that they're still, running and in business and have some way of getting money in there. And you've reminded me that I want to pick up a Rio Sports Bar t-shirt, because I feel like that's a real time capsule of a piece of clothing that, anyway, yeah.
I just love how they took their usual logo and just crossed out theater and put in, sports bar at the top. That's pretty clever.
Random side note, I've performed burlesque 4 times in my life, every time at that Rio Theater.
It's a great venue, yeah. I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to go back as soon as this shit is over. Yeah, just a quick recommendation from me for if you're in the 15% percentile of the population that for some reason has Apple TV and is enjoying all of their fine original programming, I highly recommend Ted Lasso.
With Jason Sudeikis, right?
That's Jason Sudeikis. That currently is an Apple TV original, so unless you have that particular streaming service, which most people don't, yeah, you can only watch it on that, but I would highly recommend it. That is just a fantastic watch. It is lighthearted and it's positive. Because the joke on that show is that he's an American football coach that gets hired to coach a British football team with the assumption that he'll run it into the ground. But the joke is that he's just positive. He's just a positive guy and he sees the bright side of things, and that changes people. And it was just nice. It was just a nice show. So it's good. So if you have Apple TV, watch that. There's really nothing else on that service that kind of appeals to me yet, but
simple premise, yeah.
But that's good, yeah. But that's the episode. That was The Return of Captain Invincible, directed by Philippe Mora. Thank you for listening to this episode. Andrew Wade, thank you for being our guest. If you like this show, please follow us on Instagram at the F is This Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the F_is_this. And visit our Facebook page. And now, Jameson, you can either close us out with a quote from the movie or another sports bomb. Your choice.
This came up at the tail end of the fight between Captain Invincible and the vacuum cleaners. Oh, this really sucks.
Good night, everybody!